Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now Bitcoin is still running into this significant resistance, so do not be fooled by these short-term pumps, because right now, as the price is still running into resistance, we are continuing to see the short-term bearish divergence affect the price in the short term. So in just a moment, I'll be talking about my exact Bitcoin trading strategy alongside Ethereum, which is starting to struggle around this key Fibonacci level in the short term, while the price of XRP is still within the short-term bullish relief during a larger bearish trend. So I'll be talking about all of that and so much more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the 4-day Bitcoin price chart, and right now the super trend indicator is still sitting in the red, so nothing's changed over the last 1 day on this chart. And if we're taking a look at this weekly Bitcoin chart, at least for now, this bearish divergence is still in place. So once again, not much has changed over the last 1 day on this chart. And if we're taking a look at this weekly Bitcoin chart right now, and just over the last 1 day, we've seen another weekly candle close, which is further confirming the fact that we are reducing the amount of bearish momentum here, moving closer towards a bullish crossover in the weekly Bitcoin MACD. But obviously, we've not yet confirmed a bullish crossover. We still need to wait for that to actually confirm. And at the soonest, that would confirm in perhaps 1 or 2 weeks from now, possibly longer, but at least a couple of weeks before we see a bullish crossover here at the current rate. But if we're looking at the last couple of times, we were moving closer towards a bullish crossover in this indicator on this time frame. We were already in the recovery stage in the price of Bitcoin, already seeing short-term bullish price action, and of course getting ready to start to see more bullish price action following the bullish crossover. And so that is still the current situation on this chart. Once again, not a lot has changed on this weekly time frame over the last 1 day at least. But if we're taking a look at this 3-day Bitcoin price chart, as of right now, the price of Bitcoin is still running into this important level of resistance based on the volume profile indicator, showing a lot of traded volume acting as resistance at around 96,000, give or take, really at around 96 to 97,000, acting as strong resistance, at least based on this indicator. And so that is still definitely an important level to pay attention to, but we can clearly see that above this area of traded volume, above around 96 to 97,000, we don't really have a lot of traded volume at these higher levels. The volume really starts dropping off, which basically means we could potentially see a quick move back up towards all-time highs once we first confirm a breakout above this resistance. But obviously in the meantime, just in the short term, we are still struggling at this resistance. And as for support, based on this chart right here, I would expect previous resistance to flip into new support. So if we were to see a pullback here, I would expect a lot of support in between around 86,000 to 88,000. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin price chart, technically speaking, the bullish divergence on the daily time frame is still currently active, because we've not yet confirmed any invalidation signal to invalidate the bullish divergence. And so once again, as I've been saying every day on the channel over the last couple of weeks, since all the way back down here, I've been telling you we're most likely going to see either a bullish relief or a bit of choppy sideways price action as the most common outcomes from a bullish divergence. And obviously over the last couple of weeks, that's been perfectly playing out as expected. But like I've said, just over the last half a week here in the short term, we have gotten very close to overbought territories in the daily Bitcoin RSI, telling us that we're starting to run out of room towards the upside just in the short term, and we need a little bit of time to cool off, basically slow down from all of the previous bullish price action in order to reset the RSI, which can ultimately give us more room towards the upside later on. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin price chart, obviously as of right now, the price of Bitcoin is still running into this important Fibonacci area of resistance, the golden pocket, which is the most important Fibonacci area on the price chart, and that's sitting in between around 94,500 to 95,500. And once again, we have that point of resistance at around 96,000 based on this traded volume. So really at give or take 95 to 96k, that's where most of the resistance is currently sitting. And so like I've already been saying over the last few days, the fact that the price of Bitcoin is running into significant resistance at the same time as getting very close to overbought territories in the daily Bitcoin RSI, this is all telling us that it's very likely we're going to struggle in the short term a little bit around this area, and most likely see either a bit of choppy sideways price action or maybe a slight little pullback in the coming days as a likely scenario, just to cool off and reset. And if we're zooming moving further into the short term, taking a look at the 4-hour Bitcoin price chart, obviously as of right now, the price is technically still playing out this bearish divergence here just in the short term once again. And we can clearly see that over the last half a day or so, just recently, we did see a bit of a bounce, a bit of a short-term pump in the price of Bitcoin up towards these local highs. But remember, we have a lot of resistance at approximately 95 to 96,000, which is exactly where the price started to run into. And also, as the price was approaching this previous high, at least for now on the 4-hour time frame, the RSI is still sitting in lower highs, which means we still have a bearish divergence. Whether it's this bearish divergence or if we create maybe a slight higher high, that would possibly just form a new bearish divergence on the 4-hour time frame. And so we have to understand that at least in the short term, the current situation is that we are struggling. We're most likely going to see either some sideways price action or a slight little pullback, not necessarily a massive crash or anything, but just a bit of a cool off to reset some of these indicators like the RSI on the daily time frame, which once again, as I said earlier, can ultimately give us some more room towards the upside for perhaps an eventual breakout later on. And so when we consider all of this information, what is my Bitcoin trading strategy? And well, right now, my Bitcoin trading strategy is that I'm still currently in the long position that I entered at roughly 88,000 at that previous breakout. Basically, once we broke out above these highs right here, that was a key point to open a long position, which I shared on the channel back then. And since I opened that trade back then, of course, I took a small amount of profits, which I shared here on the channel at give or take 94,000 back around here, because I obviously talked about how the price is starting to run into resistance and we're likely going to see a little bit of a cool off coming soon. And so far that's been playing out perfectly. But overall, of course, I'm still long on the price of Bitcoin. I simply just slightly reduced the size of the trade back then. But once again, I'm still long on Bitcoin. And we can clearly see that my stop loss here is above my entry, sitting in profits, which means even in the worst case scenario, if we just crash out of nowhere, that would hit the stop loss and close the trade automatically at that level in profits. And the reason why I'm still long on the price of Bitcoin is that because overall, I am still bullish, more bullish than bearish in the somewhat midterm here for the next few weeks or so. Technically speaking, once again, we're still in the recovery stage based on this chart right here out of this correction. And of course, once we finally see that confirmed breakout above this golden pocket and ideally confirming a breakout with candle closes above 96,000, in that situation, we could potentially see a further quick recovery towards all-time highs once we first confirm the breakout. But once again, we just simply have to understand that it's very normal to see the price struggle a little bit, not move in straight lines. And so that is simply the situation in the immediate short term here, struggling around resistance, seeing a bit of a call off, which is to be expected. And as for other support and resistance levels on this chart right here, these points of resistance and support levels have not changed over the last one day. So if you want to know more about those levels, then check out my last video here on the channel. And if you want to trade these moves in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, personally, I'm taking this trade right here over on 2bit. So I'll make sure to leave a link to 2bit below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, you can get some massive sign up bonuses. And also 2bit is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But for whatever reason, if you don't want 2bit as an exchange, there's also BTNex as another exchange out there that I also use. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to BTNex below this video. And if you use that link, by the way, to BTNex, you can get an exclusive 10% discount on all trading fees over on BTNex forever. That is a lifetime fee discount, which you can claim only using that link. And on top of that massive lifetime fee discount over on BTNex, there's also some huge deposit bonuses here. And in case you're wondering, BTNex is also a no KYC exchange. But with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, and at least for now in the somewhat short term here, we still currently have more liquidity above the price than what is sitting below the price, at least what's relatively close to the price of Bitcoin here. And so at least based on the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, this is telling us that it's more likely we'll be bullish than we'll be bearish. So basically we're more bullish than bearish, at least based on the Bitcoin liquidation heat map. But once again, just in the immediate short term for a number of days as a likely scenario, we're just seeing a little bit of a cool off, struggling around key resistance. That is the current situation. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the weekly time frame, technically speaking, Ethereum is still within a larger bearish trend, also known as a bear market on the weekly time frame. But of course, in the shorter term, we're still seeing that major bounce from this significant support in between around 1.4K to 1550. So not a lot has changed on the weekly time frame over the last one day. day. And if we're taking a look at the daily time frame, right now as of recording this video, the price of ETH is currently retesting and somewhat struggling, somewhat stagnating around this Fibonacci level, which is sitting at approximately 1.8k, just under 1.8k. And so in the immediate short term, that's acting as a small amount of support for the price. But of course, as I always say, the price of ETH follows very similar price action to what Bitcoin is doing. So even though we don't necessarily have significant resistance right here for the price of ETH, just above where the price is starting to struggle at, of course, if Bitcoin is struggling in the short term, that will cause Ethereum and a lot of the crypto market to also struggle. And so ultimately, I would only expect much more of a bullish relief here if Bitcoin ultimately sees a breakout. Of course, once we break out for Bitcoin, that will likely affect the crypto market in the bullish direction. And the next major point of resistance for Ethereum based on this chart right here, first of all, we have some short-term resistance at just above 1.9k, and the next significant point of resistance for Ethereum is sitting at around 2.1k. And so that is the current situation for Ethereum. Really not a lot has changed over the last one day. So getting straight into the price of Solana on the 3-day time frame, and right now Solana is technically still playing out this bullish divergence, which means we're most likely going to see a continued bullish relief, or at the very least a bit of choppy sideways price action as the most likely outcomes from a bullish divergence. And if we're zooming into the daily time frame, of course, right now the price of Solana is continuing to find support along this previous Fibonacci level of resistance, and that's sitting at around $146 to $147. So at least in the short term, this is some good news for the price of Solana. Obviously, if we broke back below around 146 with a daily candle close below that level, in the immediate short term, that would be a bit of a bearish signal. But for now, we are still holding that level, which once again is some good news for Solana. Technically, this is bullish price structure. Anytime we break out above resistance and hold it as support, that is bullish price structure. And the next major resistance towards the upside is sitting at around $167. And above that, we have more resistance at around 179 and significant resistance in between around 191 to 200. And once again, as I always say, the price of Solana, along with a lot of the crypto market, follows similar price action to what Bitcoin is doing. So if Bitcoin continues to struggle here in the short term around this resistance, expect Solana to struggle a little bit in the short term. And then once again, if Bitcoin ultimately breaks out here, expect a continued bullish relief for Solana. And if we're taking a look at XRP on the 3-day time frame, technically speaking, the bearish divergence is still active on the 3-day chart, as I said months ago, at much higher prices. But just in the short term, we are moving closer towards potentially invalidating this bearish divergence. For example, if we start to see a breakout here in the RSI, ideally above this previous high in the 3-day XRP RSI, of course, that would be at least one invalidation signal pointing towards the invalidation of the bearish divergence. And so we're sitting right on the edge of possibly confirming more of a reversal for XRP out of this bearish divergence here. And if we're taking a look at the daily time frame, of course, at least for now, we are still within a descending parallel channel, which is effectively a bearish trend. But of course, during this bearish trend on the daily time frame, we can see multiple short-term bullish reliefs. So at least for now, we are still within this short-term bullish relief, and the top side of the descending parallel channel, the line of resistance here, is sitting at around $2.45 to $2.50 approximately as the next major point of resistance. And XRP is moving closer towards possibly reversing out of the bearish trend. Once again, as I just said, we're getting close to possibly invalidating the bearish divergence on the 3-day time frame. So if that happens, and especially if we start breaking out above this key line of resistance here, that would be a bullish reversal signal, finally pointing towards a trend reversal. So not just seeing these short-term bullish reliefs during a bearish trend, but actually starting a new bullish trend once we see some of those signals confirm, like a breakout here in the 3-day XRP RSI and a breakout above this line of resistance. And ideally, in order to be more confident in that bullish reversal playing out for XRP, ideally we also need to see a breakout for Bitcoin. Once again, if Bitcoin sees a bullish breakout above this resistance, that will really help XRP and a lot of the altcoins. But other than that, not a lot has changed over the last one day for XRP. So getting straight into the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame, and for now, now, Chainlink is still struggling around this key area of resistance, sitting in between around 1490 to 1550, with that significant resistance at around 1550 once again. And so continue to expect the price of Chainlink to struggle in that area. And of course, that's exactly where the price has been struggling as expected. But once we finally see a confirmed breakout, ideally with candle closes on the daily time frame confirming above $15.50, and even better if we hold that as new support, in that situation, the next major price target, the next significant point of resistance would be sitting at around 1750 to 1760. And technically speaking, the bullish divergence on the daily Chainlink chart is still currently active, because despite running into this resistance, we've not yet confirmed any invalidation signal to invalidate the bullish divergence. So that is technically still playing out. But of course, while the price is running into resistance, this is causing the price to struggle in the immediate short term here. And like I've said recently here on the channel, even if we see a further rejection and a pullback here in the short term, I'm not saying that will happen. I'm saying even if that happens, that's not necessarily all bad news for the price of Chainlink, because for as long as we were to bounce at somewhere around here, so somewhere around, let's just say $12.50 to $13, in that case, we could possibly be forming an inverse head and shoulders pattern for the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame, which would be a bullish price pattern, setting up a massive bullish price target well beyond $20. But I want to make it clear, in order to actually confirm that possible inverse head and shoulders pattern, we first need to form a right shoulder, which involves a further pullback and then a bounce somewhere around there, and then ultimately a confirmed breakout above 1550 in order to confirm that price pattern. But for now, once again, not a lot has changed over the last one day. But remember, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, check out those links below this video to those exchanges if you want to claim those massive bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can trade crypto, no matter if the price is bullish, bearish, or chopping around sideways, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.